But first of all, gentleman you heard briefly speak before we broke for lunch is here to talk about how cybersecurity can actually be a growth for your business from the University of Wolverhampton. Mr. Hugo Russell, everybody.
Thank you very much, Mike.
All right.
Cheers, mate.
All yours.
And a very good afternoon, everyone. A quick, here we go. Yes, you know who I am. That's great. That's what I'm going to be chatting about. If you want details, you can pick them up on LinkedIn. I'm not going to cut through all these in detail. What I'll be doing is touching on these points. If we were online in that pure online environment, then I would throw this challenge at you. And you can have a think of it. You don't need to shout it out, but effectively thinking about where your office is and alliterating it with how you're feeling. An effective tip if you're doing online seminars to actually get people engaged, if we're able to see the feedback, or you'd chuck it out there to the audience. So there's a tip for you to take away on that. The inverse of that, if you're feeling a little bit malicious in regards to the whole open source side of things, you start asking people some personal information to alliterate, and before you know it, you start getting passwords. Please be careful what you share online. So not only is it a bonus, it actually has a double edge to it, and it applies with everything we do. My role at Cyber Quarter, that's the building. It's a dedicated centre designed to help businesses, both cyber suppliers and customers, actually help them take their products and services to market. We're very good at it. We employ people like Rachel. We have a location in Hereford because we have a strong connection with the Special Forces and the comms and signals units down there. Effectively, within this space is stuff for you guys to use to help you get to market or become more resilient as a business. The key things that we have within that space are things like a cyber range. I'll whiz through those. A cyber range is like a firing range. You remember hearing earlier from Alistair, how do you actually know that your tech, your systems, your SOC is up to scratch? This is a space where you can try your disaster recovery out and then have your security team actually stand up against various different forms of malware. So we can provide red team to complement your blue team. On top of that, forensic lab, so you can look at stuff afterwards if you're doing stuff. Anyone doing anything with the Internet of Things, sensors, or anything on that sort of side of stuff? A couple of people. In effect, if you're trying to adjust some of your platforms, is that data being taken to another country, to another location? Is it leaking out of it? We've all heard about the doorbells. Is that video going to China? I can actually confirm, yes, it is. In the case of some of the cheap ones on Amazon, I bought one to check it out and quickly removed it. It does. Touched on those. Now, cyber security. It is as important as your finance team. How much money does your finance team make for your business? Would your finance team or HR people actually like to be held account to how much revenue they generate for your company? It is possible with cyber to actually start joining some of these things up and making like your marketing team, your sales team, your operations more effective. And it's an interesting challenge. The cyber industry is starting to switch and become accepted to like the finance department. Jeff Mann, a person I follow on Twitter, he put this out the other day and it just hit home to me. And this is only like a couple of days ago. And it is something that we all need to consider as part of the culture in the business. We heard earlier that a person is the biggest vulnerability in a business. They can walk out with a USB key with all your clients. If a person's disgruntled an employee and taking it, how do you know whether they've taken that data? Switching, if you remember with Cyber Risk Score, we use a different platform, and I'll explain. They both have the similar effect. How the cyber team, with your marketing and sales or procurement, can actually start to tie your suppliers into things. Now, here's an interesting conundrum, and we'll have a discussion on it in a moment. If you discovered something out there about one of your competitors, and you could pretty much guarantee they're going to be hacked or have ransomware, what would you do? Would you let them know? Would you start going, who are all their customers and suppliers? Do you just keep quiet and go, well, that's their problem? Have a think. We'll just touch on that in a moment. Ultimately, what you're looking to do is create a single source of truth within your business. Here's a disturbing one: ban Excel. Okay, here, I'll do an inverse. Hands up someone who reckons their business has absolutely no customer information sitting in someone's Excel sheet in their business. Hell, I work on funded project. There's more flipping Excel sheets of clients and stuff flying around that we've got to keep on top of. There's how stuff leaks. Please start joining things up in your company. Use your ERP, your Enterprise Resource Planning System, or your CRM, and start consolidating it. Start understanding where the value is with your clients. Because if you start having that data leak, does anyone not comply with GDPR? There's, again, a nasty way of actually asking the question. Because the other side of that is, if you have data sets that are not under your control, you are not complying with GDPR. So just be aware. Now, from a client we did some work with down in Hereford, they had a fascinating incident with a healthcare provider who got held to ransomware. They were back up and running in 20 minutes. Where the rest of, you remember where all the NHS trusts and people were having it. And the reason being is, what they'd done is they'd taken a snapshot every minute of the virtual machines that were running everything. And so when it hit, they were able to go back through the logs and recover and have everything up and running. Now, they'd practiced it, they'd tested it, and the client knew what to do. And at the other end of the spectrum, they also had a services firm that hadn't listened and was still out of action for weeks. This information gathering takes effort. How important is the mobile number of a chief exec of one of your suppliers or one of your customers? A very high value. This is where it gets tricky. Do you want to allow everyone access to that in your business? Now, if it's only 5 of you in the company, fine. There's a level of permission. But as your business starts to grow, start thinking about how you secure these relevant chunks. And this is the element. Now, that diagram that I've got there, that's actually just showing the mid-market and small market CRM systems that are available to businesses. It's not just HubSpot, who's up there in the top right-hand corner, but there's all those others, and so there's many options for you, and a lot of them are well established. Hence, get the right thing in place. Now, this is where the whole open source intelligence starts to play, and how cyber can add value to your company. Now, I am not going to be teaching you how to use and start with open source. I'll touch on it in a moment. Do not do this without a guide. I will explain in a short while. You have been warned, and as soon as you get told not to do something, you'll go, I want to do it. Again, just take it step by step. 3 things that we've found really effective with clients to put in place. Make sure you have alerts on breaking news that are relevant to you. Whether it's the supply chain, you can get ahead of things. Anyone suffer with the fuel shortages at all in the last couple of weeks? You can put your hands up, it's fine. No one else can see you. I can't even see you really, but you get the idea. If you're on top of it, you actually knew about it in advance. Analysing your sources. So joining up where this information's coming from. Can you actually trust the information that's coming to you? And then more importantly, you can then start asking those critical questions. Rather than from an emotional point of view, you can actually start asking the questions with data behind it. Have that logic to deal with the emotion. It is hard work keeping the emotion out of stuff. Right. Now, there's loads of sources of information out there, and these are the typical categories that they sit in. I'm going to easy enough just show you what they all fall into as an example. This is not comprehensive, but at least give you an idea of it. You can Google open source int, or a landscape, and you'll find that image out there. Then you can expand. But it starts as an interesting way of starting to classify all the data you have in your business and inside your CRM system. There's a different way of looking at it. And again, this is a few years old. There's more that's out there. But if you actually had all that in place, you would be in the top 1% of businesses, which would then give you a massive edge on the global market. Very few do this. As my daughter, I should say, point out, who's got something crazy on the number of TikTok followers, yet at the same time, she has a very high level of security on that. And one of her companies that she's most impressed with, Black Country Museum. Has anyone seen what? Okay, I can see some people. If you haven't seen how good Black Country Museum are on use of TikTok, there's an action for you, particularly if you are B2C business. They lead the world in museums on TikTok. Absolutely fabulous what they do. Now, the flip on that is, watch out. Your email is still one of the top channels into your business. And this is what I've got here is just a snapshot from the open source framework, showing that if you look at email addresses, and we're just saying, looking at the search, there's all those different tools for searching on there. What it then means is you start asking the questions on the reverse. How vulnerable are you making your business? Have you taught your staff all these things are being used? None of this I'm paying for here, or everything I'm showing you today, anyone can do. And the point being is, it's stuff you need to be aware of, and then I'll explain why be very wary of going near this without a guide, or you'll see in a second how. Breached data. This is back to that conundrum on your supplier. Personally, if a competitor has been or potentially been breached, I will ring them up. It's just the right thing to do. You never know where it can lead to. Potential future collaborations. It builds trust. It gives in ethics. There's so many pluses. That's my values to it. I don't know your industry. If it's someone you really don't like, then you've got a massive challenge. If it's a large business that's at risk of going down, what about all their staff and all the families? There's so many things you need to consider with this. Just be aware of where it can go. If you haven't been to that top one there, and it's so risky to say that, have I been, Pawn? Just check what emails have been leaked out there on the web. It's worth doing. Now, the same thing goes with documents. This is so much fun in a second, you'll see. What's out there? Anyone using Google Drive, Dropbox, OneDrive? I think I've got all of those and various versions of that. That's syncing between your machine and your servers. Okay, you now have islands. Is that machine got BitLocker turned on, encrypted with all the relevant security? Questions to ask. At the same time, have any of those documents got out there into the wild? Are they leaked? Have they leaked anywhere? And you can start doing the same on images. Does anyone work in the creative sector? If you're in that space, then make sure that you have the relevant filters in to go and chase up and look into images and videos. You can do all that. Now, there's a whole list of all these things. But just some simple examples, and as I'm not online, I won't dive into them, for you to take away. All of you, everyone, if you haven't got a Gmail account, go create one. You don't have to use your own name. I'd recommend you don't. Go and set up alerts. Does your name appear out there on the web? Also, your address. Actually do a search on your address and your loved ones' addresses, particularly as some interesting things can happen with the land registry, and people might be able to go and change the ownership of your property, or the lease could have changed without you being aware as a tenant. This can start to give you heads up on that information. This is a fun one, the internet, the Wayback Machine. What that little strip is up there is a tiny bit of a page showing how frequently Birmingham City University's website has been changed over the last few years. So it just shows you how much they change it. you can do the same on your competitors. How quick do they get on top of that? If you want these slides, just ping me an email or drop me on LinkedIn. Say it's easier to read, and there's tons more info as well. There's something old school at the bottom there. I've been using this for over a decade. It's the Google Guide. Please be careful. I'm pretty sure some of the links that are in this now, that they're linking to, those sites, I'm questioning their security. But the key thing to look at is Google hacking. I did put it on there. Fabulous. Right. For the person sitting on their own, you're just going to have to contemplate life on your own or have a chat. There's just a 10 to 20 seconds. I want you to have a look down that list, and I'll just show you the type of examples that you can do things. Site. If you want to search a particular site and just that, you can put it in. So I could do a site search on a law firm and go, all right, cool. It'll only tell me information. Google's brilliant at digging in. This is why it's called Google hacking. If you're looking at in URL, it will only go and find stuff that's got that link in there, or a file type, PDF, or Excel, or Doc. So much fun you can have with this. So if you want to create a quick PowerPoint, you're never sure, do PPT. That's instead of PDF. And it will just get PowerPoints coming back. It then leads on into where you can start using things like that bottom one. There's more than these, where it says like a camera between the range of $50 and $100, or the pound symbol. Or you could do in your competitor's site for a product and this product range, let me know. And that's where you can start to find pricings and quotes and things like that. Are you doing the same, accidentally releasing it? Or could you release something you don't want to know or accidentally find? If you start tracking your logs on your servers and start looking at who's looking at them, now you could start going, do you know what? Our competitor, because we know his IP address, is looking at our pricing every Monday. Now we see what they're doing. So they're using a scraper tool to check it. Okay, we'll update our prices after that's come through. Or we'll watch for when that comes in. We'll redirect them to false information, and that's fine. Welcome to the new way of working. And this is how you start to use your open source intelligence. You start getting clever, and suddenly the sales department, the marketing department, the finance department go, do you know what? This whole cyber thing is more than just security. It's making our business resilient and profitable. A couple of bonus things. Do you remember we would, let me just pop those up. You can do an external view very quickly. I can highly recommend you look at things like Cyber Risk Score. I don't know what Richard's business, I've not used it. We use a similar type of product for doing this checking for ourselves and also for our clients. Ours is more of a sledgehammer type thing. It's stick a 0 on the price after that. It is enterprise class, and we monitor stuff, and it is really worth doing because it can tell not only us, but our suppliers and customers and all our people who work with us on the cyber quarter projects, what their risks are. You need to do the same. We also have a strong relationships with the likes of Fortinet and Palo Alto. So Palo Alto, they actually have a thing called a Unit 42. What Unit 42 have is atoms. For those techies out there, these are actionable threat objects and mitigation. In other words, stuff that's known and how to fix it. Typical patterns, the way to look into it. Those are all the atoms that are currently known with those different sectors as of last night. That are actual, that are current, that are really causing problems. So if you're in one of those sectors, for example, technology, there's 17 known models that are causing real problems at the moment. Are you protected against them? Now, if you're going to start digging into this whole world, don't. But do. Please do it right. You'll see in a second that there is an answer to it. But as soon as you go near this, you become a target. Protect your identity, please. You really need to watch. You do not use your work address or anything related to you. As a matter of fact, there's some neat tools that can auto-generate profiles for you, and it all joins it all up. The tricky bit is to use those tools, you then become a target in the process. So it's a catch-22. And the whole thing about disinformation, because if you're starting to go and look at your competitors, that's you want to make sure they're not going to do to you what you're going to do to them. Loads of different ways of hacking, and not hacking, but digging into people to find out where they're vulnerable. And you can see it from a business perspective. The people, they've got links there. They're the key things for you guys to take action on. Follow me up on a link after that. It's really worth your while following on this stuff. If you want to know more, just drop me an email. And if you want to cut through my queue of stuff, start your email with CQTT in the subject, then a space and your domain name after it. It'll help me verify who you are, and it'll just avoid and speed the process up. That's that. Have a very good afternoon, and enjoy yourself. Pleasure, mate.
Brilliant. Appreciate it. Thanks, mate. Thanks very much indeed. Thank you, Hugo. And disinformation. Something I think that Fox News have been trading in for a little while now, but good to know what tools and resources they've used. And how many people here looked on the Black Country Living Museum's social media that Hugo mentioned there? They've got about another 30, 40, 50 more followers thanks to that intervention by Hugo this afternoon. Hugo's here for a little while, and I know we're already catching up with people, and people are already stopping and asking questions. So all of our speakers here for you to address and get more information from. Next up.